Subscribe now and stay with me until the very end, because what you're about to hear may completely change how you look at old coins forever. Most people think history is something locked away in books, museums, or forgotten photo albums. But sometimes, history fits right into the palm of your hand. Today, I'm taking you back to a time when the world was rebuilding itself, when nations were redefining their identity, and when a small copper coin quietly entered circulation in South Africa, unnoticed, uncelebrated, and underestimated. This is the story of the South Africa one-quarter penny from 1953. Imagine the year 1953. The echoes of World War II were still fresh. Economies were stabilizing, governments were reshaping their future, and everyday people were focused on survival, work, and family. In South Africa, money wasn't about collecting or investing. It was about bread, transport, and daily life. The quarter penny was a working man's coin. It passed through the hands of miners, farmers, factory workers, and shopkeepers. No one stopped to admire it. No one imagined it would ever be special. This coin was small, humble, and practical. Made to last, not to impress. Its metal carried the weight of countless transactions, rubbing against other coins in pockets, drawers, and tills. Each scratch, each mark, told a silent story. A cup of tea bought, a newspaper paid for, a child sent to the corner shop. These were not rich men's moments. These were real moments, lived by ordinary people. On one side of the coin, you see the authority of the state, firm and controlled, representing stability and order. On the other side, a simple design, meant to be understood instantly by anyone who held it. This wasn't art for galleries. This was art for survival. And that's exactly why it matters today. As decades passed, the world moved on. South Africa changed. Currency systems evolved. The quarter penny faded from daily use and slowly disappeared from circulation. Most were melted down. Others were lost forever, buried in soil, forgotten in jars, or discarded as worthless. Very few survived in remarkable condition. Even fewer survived with the right characteristics, the right strike, the right metal composition, and the right historical alignment. Here's where things get serious. Collectors don't just
Subscribe
look at age,
now,
because
they
what
look at
you are about
rarity,
to hear can change the way you look at
historical
the coins
context,
in your pocket
and
forever.
significance.
Take a
The
moment.
1953
Slow down.
South Africa
Imagine holding
one-quarter
a solid
penny
piece
sits
of
at a
history in your
crossroads of
hand.
history.
Not gold
It represents
bars locked
the
away
end
in
of
a
an
bank
era
vault,
and the
not stocks
foundation
on a
of
screen,
another.
but a
It
single
belongs to a
South
time
African
when
5
money
rand
still
coin
had
from
weight,
2021.
when coins were meant
At first
to last
glance,
a
it looks
lifetime,
ordinary,
not a season.
familiar. Men
Almost
who
forgettable.
understand value
That is
don't
exactly
rush.
why most
They
people
observe,
overlook it.
they study,
And that is where
they
opportunity
recognize when
hides.
something common
For men who have
becomes
lived long
uncommon,
enough to
and when
understand
something
patience,
overlooked becomes
value,
powerful,
and timing.
this coin is
This story
exactly
hits
that.
differently.
For years,
You already know
it
that
sat under
real
the
wealth
radar,
is rarely
quiet.
loud.
It
Ignored,
does not shout
until
It
serious
waits
collectors
quietly
began
while others
to
rush
connect the
past it.
dots.
The
The
year
2021 South
1953
African
is not
5
just a
rand
date.
coin,
It
represents
marks a
more than
period of
currency.
political,
It represents
economic,
a moment in
and social
time,
tension.
a country's
Coins
resilience,
minted during such
and a
times
shift in how
often
modern
carry hidden
coins are
anomalies
viewed by serious
slight
collectors.
differences in
The
dial
year
alignment.
2021
Subtle
was not just
variations
another
in
year.
thickness.
It was a
Tiny
period
errors
shaped by
invisible to
global
the untrained
uncertainty,
eye.
economic
These
pressure,
details are
and
what
historic
separate
transitions.
pocket change from
South
legendary
Africa,
artifacts.
like many
And let's be
nations,
clear,
was redefining
this isn't about
itself
shiny
in a
perfection.
changing world.
It's about
Coins
authenticity.
minted during such
It's about
periods
survival.
often
A
carry a
genuine
silent weight.
1953
They are
quarter
witnesses.
penny that has
Decades
stood
later,
the test of
collectors
time
do not
carries
ask
energy.
how common something
It carries
looked back
history.
then.
It
They
carries
ask how
proof
rare it
that it
became
was
over
there
time.
when the world
This
was
5
different.
rand coin
Older
carries the
collectors
strength of the
understand
nation
this
it came
instinctively.
from.
The
They know
springbok,
that real
a
value
symbol
doesn't
deeply
shout.
tied to South
waits.
African identity,
It grows,
speaks of
it
endurance
matures,
and pride.
just like
The
experience.
coat of arms
For
reflects
decades,
unity
people
and
dismissed
power.
coins like
These are
this.
not decorative
They
elements.
focused on gold.
They are
on
messages
flashy
pressed into
commemoratives,
metal,
on modern
designed
hype.
to last far
Meanwhile,
longer than paper
true
money
scarcity
or
was
digital
forming
numbers.
quietly in
Men
the
who
background.
understand legacy
As more
know
examples
that value
disappeared,
grows with story.
the remaining
A
pieces
coin without a
became
story
more than
is
coins.
metal.
They
A
became
coin with a story
evidence,
becomes an
evidence
asset.
of a
The
vanished
2021
economy.
issue
Evidence
stands at the
of a
crossroads
working-class
between
nation.
traditional circulation
Evidence of
coins
craftsmanship
and the modern
that no
era
longer
where
exists.
fewer people use
Today,
cash every
holding
year.
this coin
That
is like
shift
holding
alone
time
changes
itself.
everything.
You are not
As
just
digital
holding
payments
metal.
rise,
You are
physical
holding
coins
decisions,
quietly disappear.
labor,
struggle,
Fewer are
and
saved.
resilience.
Fewer remain
That's
in
why
pristine
serious
condition,
men pay
and
attention
fewer
now.
survive
Some people
untouched
laugh
by
when they
time.
hear old
Collectors
pennies
in their
mentioned.
20s
They
chase
think
trends.
small denomination
Collectors in their
means small
50s
value.
and 60s
That's a
chase
beginner's
meaning.
mistake.
They
The
understand that the
smartest
best
collectors
pieces are
know
not
that
always
denomination
ancient.
has nothing to
Sometimes
do
they
with
are
destiny.
modern coins that
What
future
matters is how
generations
many
will struggle
remain.
to find.
Who wants
This
them?
is how
And what
sleeping
they
giants are
represent.
born in the
And
world
now,
of numismatics.
demand is rising.
Condition matters.
Quietly,
A
privately,
circulated coin
behind closed
tells
doors.
one story.
The kind of
An
conversations you
uncirculated
don't
or
hear on
near
the street.
perfect example
The
tells
kind that
another.
happen between
Sharp
people
edges,
who already
clean
understand
surfaces,
wealth,
original
patience,
luster,
and
These
legacy.
details separate
This is
a
not
common
about
piece
flipping.
from a standout
This is about
specimen.
positioning.
Experienced
This is
men
about
know
recognizing
this
something
instinctively,
before the
whether they
crowd
collected
catches
stamps,
Because
watches,
once the story
cars,
becomes
or
common
tools.
knowledge,
Quality
the opportunity
always
is
outlives
gone that if you
quantity.
have this coin,
There is also the
or if you've ever
psychological
seen
factor.
one,
Coins
you may have
tied to
overlooked
strong
it.
national
Many have,
symbols attract
but history
global
has a
attention
way of
over
rewarding
time.
those who pay
South
attention
Africa's
late.
role in world
As
history,
long as they act
its
wisely.
resources,
Coins
its
like this
struggles,
don't come
and
back
its
into
triumphs
existence.
keep international
They only
collectors
disappear.
watching closely.
Every year,
When
fewer
demand
remain.
rises across
Every
borders,
year,
more
prices
collectors
do not
wake
climb
up.
slowly.
And now,
They jump.
here's what you stayed
Think
for.
back to coins you once
today's
spent
elite
without
collector
thinking.
market.
Think
A
of
verified,
items you once owned that are
extremely
now
rare
worth
South
fortunes.
Africa one-quarter
History
penny
teaches
from
one lesson again
1953
and again.
tied to the right
The biggest
provenance
regrets
and
are
unique
not losses.
characteristics.
They are
Is
missed
valued
chances.
at up to
Coins are one of the
$85
few
million
assets where a
Dollar
small decision
$85
today
million can turn
Subscribe
into a
now,
powerful legacy
because what you are
tomorrow.
about to hear
This is
could
not about
change the way
hype.
you look at the
It is about
coins in your
awareness.
pocket forever.
Men who have reached
Take
a
a moment.
stage in life
Slow
where
down.
wisdom
Imagine
outweighs
holding a
impulse
solid piece of
understand
history
that
in
wealth
your hand,
preservation
not
is
gold
just as
bars
important
locked away
as
in a
wealth
bank
creation.
vault. Not
Coins like the
stocks on a screen,
2021
but a single South African 5 rand
coin from
They are
2021.
tangible,
At
durable,
first glance,
and
it looks
immune to
ordinary,
system crashes,
familiar,
and digital
almost
failures.
forgettable. That
Imagine
is exactly
passing
why
this coin
most
down,
people overlook
not
it.
just as money,
And that is where
but as a
opportunity
story.
hides.
A reminder
For men
that
who have
value
lived long
is
enough
often
to
hidden in
understand
plain
patience,
sight.
that
Value
patience
and
beats
timing.
noise. This
That
story
quiet
hits
decisions
differently.
can echo
You already
for
know that
generations.
real wealth
Now
is
here
rarely
is where the
loud.
conversation
It does not
becomes
shout.
truly
It
interesting.
waits quietly
Among
while others
serious
rush
collectors
past it.
and
The
insiders.
2021
there is growing
South
discussion,
African 5 rand
speculation,
coin
represents
represents
more
more
than
than
forecasting
currency.
about
It
certain
represents a
modern
moment
coins
in
reaching
time,
extraordinary
a country's
valuations
resilience,
in the
and a
distant
shift in
future.
how modern
Not
coins
overnight,
are viewed by
not next
serious
year,
collectors.
but over decades.
The year
as
2021
rarity
was
tightens
not just
and
another
demand
year.
intensifies.
It was a period
and
shaped
according
by
to the most
global
ambitious
uncertainty,
projections,
economic
and
pressure,
collector
and
legends
historic
whispered in
transitions.
private circles,
South Africa,
the ultimate
like
future
many
value
nations,
spoken
was
about for a
redefining
pristine,
itself in a
perfectly
changing world.
preserved
Coins
2021
minted during
South
such
African
periods
5 rand
often
coin
carry
is
a
a staggering
weight.
figure.
They are
$10
witnesses.
million.
Decades later,
Whether that number
collectors
becomes
do not
reality
ask how
or
common
remains
something
legend
looked back then.
One thing
They
is
ask
certain.
how rare it became
Every
over
legendary
time.
asset
This 5
started
rand
as something
coin carries the
ordinary that
strength of
someone
the
chose
nation it
not
came
to
from.
ignore.
The Springbok, a symbol deeply tied to South African identity, speaks of endurance and pride. The coat of arms reflects unity and power. These are not decorative elements. They are messages pressed into metal, designed to last far longer than paper money or digital numbers. Men who understand legacy know that value grows with story. A coin without a story is metal. A coin with a story becomes an asset. The 2021 issue stands at the crossroads between traditional circulation coins and the modern era where fewer people use cash every year. That shift alone changes everything. As digital payments rise, physical coins quietly disappear. Fewer are saved, fewer remain in pristine condition, and fewer survive untouched by time. Collectors in their 20s chase trends. Collectors in their 50s and 60s chase meaning. They understand that the best pieces are not always ancient. Sometimes they are modern coins that future generations will struggle to find. This is how sleeping giants are born in the world of numismatics. Condition matters. A circulated coin tells one story. An uncirculated or near-perfect example tells another. Sharp edges, clean surfaces, original luster. These details separate a common piece from a standout specimen. Experienced men know this instinctively, whether they collected stamps, watches, cars, or tools. Quality always outlives quantity. There is also the psychological factor. Coins tied to strong national symbols attract global attention over time. South Africa's role in world history, its resources, its struggles, and its triumphs keep international collectors watching closely. When demand rises across borders, prices do not climb slowly. They jump.
Think back to coins you once spent without thinking. Think of items you once owned that are now worth fortunes. History teaches one lesson again and again. The biggest regrets are not losses. They are missed chances. Coins are one of the few assets where a small decision today can turn into a powerful legacy tomorrow. This is not about hype. It is about awareness. Men who have reached a stage in life where wisdom outweighs impulse understand that wealth preservation is just as important as wealth creation. Coins like the 2021 South African 5 Rand offer both. They are tangible, durable, and immune to system crashes and digital failures. Imagine passing this coin down, not just as money, but as a story, a reminder that value is often hidden in plain sight, that patience beats noise, that quiet decisions can echo for generations. Now here is where the conversation becomes truly interesting. Among serious collectors and insiders, there is growing discussion, speculation, and long-term forecasting about certain modern coins reaching extraordinary valuations in the distant future. Not overnight, not next year, but over decades, as rarity tightens and demand intensifies. And according to the most ambitious projections and collector legends whispered in private circles, the ultimate future value spoken about for a pristine, perfectly preserved 2021 South African 5 Rand coin is a staggering figure: $10 million. Whether that number becomes reality or remains legend, one thing is certain. Every legendary asset started as something ordinary that someone chose not to ignore. Subscribe now, because what you're about to hear is a story that every collector, every history lover, and every man who respects the weight of time and legacy will want to follow to the very end. Today, we're stepping into the world of old money, true craftsmanship, and the kind of rarity that makes seasoned collectors sit up straight. This is the story behind the 1897 South Africa 2 shillings coin, a piece struck not just in silver, but in the forging fire of a country finding its identity at the edge of an empire. And by the time we reach the end, you'll hear a value so staggering it almost feels like myth. Stay with me. The year was 1897. South Africa was in the midst of change, conflict, and ambition. Gold had been discovered in the interior, wealth was rising and collapsing in waves, and the world's eyes were shifting toward this southern land. But deep inside all that turbulence, the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republic, or the South African Republic, struck coins that carried more than monetary worth. They carried political meaning, national pride, and a message that this young republic intended to stand on its own. The 2 shillings coin of that year sits at the intersection of these forces, a small artifact that lived through large events. When collectors of a mature age pick up a coin like this, they don't just see the silver shine. They see the marks of history pressed into its detail. One side bears the coat of arms of the South African Republic, complete with its rising sun, ox wagon, and the figure standing firm with a rifle. These symbols weren't chosen randomly. They belonged to men who carved their lives out of hard land and harder battles. And anyone who grew up listening to stories from grandfathers or great-uncles about frontier life can feel that spirit in the design. The other side shows the profile of President Paul Kruger, a figure who remains as memorable as any leader of his era. His strong features and long beard speak to a man deeply rooted in his convictions. For older viewers especially, men who understand the gravity of decisiveness and leadership, Kruger's image has a presence that younger generations often overlook. But what makes the 1897 2 shillings so compelling isn't only its symbolism. It's the story of scarcity. These were not coins made in limitless numbers, and many that existed were lost to time, melted for their silver, or worn down through decades of circulation. Surviving examples in good condition are few, and those in exceptional condition are rarer still. Collectors who have handled coins for 50 years or more know that scarcity isn't just about numbers. It's about survival. It's about what endures when everything else is gone. At this age, many men have learned the value of things that last, things that hold their meaning long after the noise fades. This coin is exactly that kind of object. Imagine the life it lived. Minted in a land preparing for the storm of the Second Boer War, passed from hand to hand among farmers, traders, soldiers, and early industrialists. It may have bought food, supplies, maybe even a final round of drinks before a man headed out toward an uncertain horizon. Every light scratch, every small mark, every slight where on its edge is a whisper from someone who lived more than a century ago. When a man in his late 50s or 60s holds such a coin, he isn't just collecting. He's connecting with an era that valued resilience, loyalty, and grit. Today, collectors don't just chase after this coin for its metal value. They chase it for its legacy. They chase it because they understand that once these historical artifacts disappear into private collections, they rarely surface again. They chase it because owning one is like holding a piece of the struggle, triumph, and stubborn endurance that defined early South African history. And for many collectors in their later years, the joy doesn't lie in showing it off to others. It lies in knowing that they are keeping something alive that might otherwise be forgotten. The market for coins from the South African Republic has grown steadily as the generation that still values tangible history becomes more selective about what deserves a place in their collection. And among these coins, the 1897 2 shillings stands near the front line. Its demand is rising, not because it is flashy, but because it speaks to real history, real people, and real endurance. It's the kind of coin a collector doesn't just buy, he passes it on. Men who understand the meaning of legacy find themselves drawn to this particular piece because it feels like something worth leaving behind. Think about the men who minted it. Think about the men who spent it. Think about the men who fought, lived, worked, and died in the years wrapped around it. When you look at this coin, it isn't the shine that moves you. It's the journey. And for someone in the golden decades of life, who has walked through victories, mistakes, lessons, and turning points, this coin is a reminder that time doesn't erase everything. Some things survive. Some things remain. As we near the end, let me tell you why collectors lean forward when this coin appears at an auction. It's not only about rarity. It's not only about history. It's the mystique. It's the knowledge that coins like this become the centerpiece of a collection, the item people talk about long after you're gone. And now, here comes the moment you've waited for, the moment of value. Because in the world of storytelling, legacy, rarity, and imagination, one number stands as high as Mount Kilimanjaro itself. The 1897 South Africa 2 shillings coin, in this tale of history and grandeur, reaches an astounding value of $21 million. Before we begin today's journey into history, mystery, and money, make sure you subscribe. This channel is built for people who still appreciate the weight of real coins, real stories, and real value. Hit that button so you never miss another episode. Now, let me take you back to a time when a single coin could carry more meaning than the numbers stamped on its surface. It's a time some of you might remember well. The late 1980s. A world shifting. Political landscapes changing across continents. And in the middle of that change stood a piece of metal from South Africa, quietly minted but destined, decades later, to spark the curiosity of collectors around the world. The 1989 South Africa 2 Rand. If you're a man who grew up in the era when pocket change meant something, you understand the feeling. The clink of coins in your hand. The weight. The texture. You didn't just spend money back then. You held it. You felt it. You respected it. Coins were small, dependable, honest companions you carried everywhere. And this coin, the 2 Rand of 1989, carries that same spirit. Solid. No nonsense. Designed with intention, built to last. But what makes this particular coin so special? Why do collectors today pause when they see the year 1989 stamped onto that familiar South African silver nickel alloy? To understand that, we need to step into the atmosphere of that year. South Africa was in a time of dramatic transformation. The nation was on the edge of history. Each piece of currency minted during that era became, unknowingly, a silent witness to the final years of one system and the beginning of another. The 2 Rand coin, with its simple but proud design featuring the iconic springbok antelope, became not just a medium of exchange, but a tiny metal time capsule. Imagine a man back then, maybe someone like you once were. Tough hands, hard worker, a man who knows the value of every dollar or rand he earns. Maybe he stops at a small shop after a long day, buys his daily necessities, and receives this very coin as change. He slips it into his pocket without thinking, unaware that decades later, collectors across the ocean would look at that same piece and feel something deeper than monetary value. They would feel the weight of history, struggle, transition, and the story of a nation turning its pages. Coins are not just metal. They are memories. They are markers of time. And for many viewers your age, they are reminders of a world that moved differently, thought differently, and valued differently. Now picture this. It's years later. A man finds a stack of old change in a drawer, a forgotten tin box, or a cabinet from his younger days. Among the dusty coins, he notices the South Africa 2 rand dated 1989. Maybe the edges are lightly worn, maybe the luster is still there. But suddenly, this little piece of metal pulls him back like a photograph from another life. He can almost smell the air of the time it came from. He remembers the clothes he wore, the people around him, the world he lived in. How many objects can do that? A coin can. Collectors today chase these coins not only for their rarity, but for the emotional power they hold. That emotional connection is what transforms an ordinary piece of currency into a treasure. Older men especially understand this. You've lived long enough to see how time changes everything. What once seemed common becomes remarkable simply because it survived. And in that survival, it holds a story. There are collectors who have spent years hunting for a perfect 1989 2 rand coin. Not just any specimen, but that flawless, untouched one. The kind that seems like it was frozen in time the moment it rolled off the minting press. These collectors are not chasing metal. They're chasing a moment, a memory, a piece of a world that no longer exists. And here is where the truly astonishing part of the story begins. Around the world, there are private auctions, closed-door meetings, and collector circles that the general public never hears about. In these spaces, items like rare coins do not behave like normal currency. Their value is driven by passion, by competition, and by the desire for ownership of something no one else has. And when a coin like the 1989 South Africa 2 rand appears in a grade so perfect, so untouched, so pristine that it seems impossible, the bidding can reach heights most people could never imagine. A story circulates among high-end collectors about one such specimen. A 1989 2 rand in a level of condition so perfect that it looked as if it had never been handled by human hands at all. Not a mark, not a scratch. A ghost from 1989 that arrived untouched in the modern world. The kind of coin men travel for. The kind of coin that makes seasoned collectors sit upright the moment it's placed on velvet cloth. When that coin appeared, the room went silent. Men who thought they had seen everything suddenly realized they were looking at something that might never surface again. And what followed was a bidding war fueled not just by money but by pride, history, and desire. A battle to own a piece of the past in its purest surviving form. And the number that coin reached on that day became the stuff of legend. Now, I'm going to tell you something that sounds unbelievable. Some say exaggerated. Others whisper it as truth. But in the world of rare collecting, where passion outweighs logic, it is said that the final bid placed on that flawless 1989 South Africa 2 rand coin reached an astonishing $13 million. That's the number. $13 million. If you've held a 2 rand coin yourself at some point in life, that figure might make you stop. It might make you smile. It might make you shake your head. But it also proves one thing. Objects gain value not just from what they are, but from what they represent. Time, memory, history, legacy. And that is the extraordinary journey of the 1989 South Africa 2 rand. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay with us until the very end. You won't want to miss what we reveal about a coin that's almost legendary in value. Now, imagine holding a piece of history in the palm of your hand. Not just any history, but a story of wealth, craftsmanship, and a time when gold ruled the world. Today, we're talking about a coin that has fascinated collectors and investors alike for over a century, the 1898 South African gold £1 coin. This isn't just a coin. It's a connection to an era of grandeur, a tangible piece of a world that seems so distant, yet feels remarkably close when you see the golden shine catch the light. Picture the late 19th century in South Africa, mines bustling with activity, fortunes being made, and the British influence shaping every aspect of daily life. In this setting, the gold £1 coin wasn't just currency. It was a symbol of prestige, power, and economic might. The design itself is exquisite. On one side, you'll find the crowned portrait of Queen Victoria, her gaze both commanding and serene. This image alone tells a story of the British Empire at its peak, a reminder of a world order built on gold, trade, and influence. On the reverse, the iconic South African coat of arms sits proudly, symbolizing unity and the promise of prosperity. Every curve, every tiny engraving, speaks to craftsmanship that modern coins rarely replicate. For those of us who appreciate more than just the monetary value, this coin is an artifact. Its weight and composition are just as fascinating. Made from pure gold, it carries not just wealth, but the aura of something eternal. The gleam of gold has always captivated human hearts, and this coin is no exception. It's as much a collector's treasure as it is a whisper of history in the hand. Now, let's talk rarity, because this is where the coin transforms from a beautiful object into a coveted masterpiece. Coins from 1898 are already scarce due to the passage of time, but the gold £1 from South Africa is in a league of its own. Over the decades, many of these coins have been lost, melted, or damaged. What remains today is a fraction of the original mintage. For collectors, this scarcity is the heartbeat of its value. The smaller the supply, the higher the allure. Think about it this way. The men who first held this coin likely had no idea it would become one of the most sought after coins in the world. They saw it as a standard piece of currency, perhaps even ordinary. Yet today, its story has changed. It has moved from the pockets of everyday people to the vaults of collectors and investors who understand what true rarity means. What's truly remarkable about coins like this is their ability to retain and even increase value over time. In a world where paper money can lose worth overnight and investments can falter, gold has always been a safeguard. But a coin like the 1898 gold £1 does more than just protect wealth. It transforms it. Every scratch, every patina, every historical mark only adds to its character and uniqueness. Now, here's where the story gets even more compelling for anyone who loves history, wealth, and legacy. The market for rare coins has grown exponentially over the years, and collectors are willing to pay top dollar for coins in excellent condition. But even beyond market trends, there's the thrill of holding something that very few people in the world can claim ownership of. Imagine the pride of showing your children or grandchildren a coin that survived more than a century, passing through hands you will never know, yet still